Hi, and welcome to Top Dice. Today, I'm going to be talking to Pete and Chris about their new Kickstarter. However, enough from me. Chris, you're new to this.
I
Introduce
am.
yourself. Who are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Chris Newton. I'm a sort of Northwest-based author of weird and spooky things. And I've known Peter for many, many, many years, and we've collaborated on things together. In fact, I knew Ken from Cakebread and Walton way back when the company was first starting, and that's how I actually got to know Pete. I saw the the whole thing come together, and I absorbed all the excitement surrounding it vicariously. But I was never involved, and I'm sort of ashamed to say that until very, very recently, I'd never been a gamer, and it was something that everybody always assumed that about me, that I would be because of all my interests, because I'm a huge Tolkien nerd and a Doctor Who fan and all of this. But writing fiction has always been my thing. But Pete and I have been talking for years and years about collaborating, and we've done various fiction projects together. We've got our own little indie publishing thing, but yeah, then eventually it was inevitable, wasn't it, Pete? You and I writing a game
Yeah,
together. So
And
you
I think
eased me in
so.
gently. Yeah, you ran a few short campaigns for me. You made a group specifically just to show me the ropes, and we did all sorts, didn't we? Using the one dice system. So, but yeah, and then as these things always are, it began with a conversation about, isn't it odd that something as niche as, tabletop role-playing games have now suddenly gone very mainstream. I'm seeing sort of display stands, very slick-looking display stands in mainstream shops by big companies, and we thought, why aren't the smaller companies benefiting from this? And we had this really interesting conversation, didn't we, Pete, about like what kind of game would appeal to both diehard gamers and people who are completely new to this concept. And then Gorton arrived.
it did indeed. And of course, also, we've got Mr. Cakebread himself of Cakebread and Walton and the creator of One Dice. Go on, sir. Tell me a bit about yourself.
Oh well, we've met before on here, haven't
We
we?
have, yeah.
I was half of Cakebread and Walton, and we, as we discussed last time, the company, we put out a lot of releases in a relatively short space of time, but we've been on hiatus. But because of Ken's health. And I found it very difficult to do the production side of things. But I did sort of keep my hand in with the writing, proofing, and editing on some other people's game work, but also fiction stuff that Chris and I were working on. But we never co-wrote anything as such. We would appear in the
No.
same things, and I would proof and edit his work, and we'd do stuff as mutual projects. But we never actually, both took our pens to exactly the same piece of work. And I've always been passionate that One Dice is something that should be really simple,
Mm.
and it's a really good entry level game. Um, but also, I kind of wanted to do something different with it, which is why I've gone down the Kickstarter route. I wanted to look at maybe doing something a bit more extended, and actually having a setting book that did more than just give you the tools, but also gave a bit of a sandbox to play in. So the question was, what was the sandbox going to be? And the honest truth is that Chris and I work on a lot of kind of folk horror stuff,
Yeah.
Lovecraftian themes, sort of touch into a lot of the stuff we do, satire. Um, so we came up with this idea of, and I think it's a combination of a few things, well, quite a lot of things we love
Mm.
fused into one.
Yeah.
Um, but part of it, I think, is just the eccentricity of English village life,
Yeah.
and also, I suppose, merging that with some of the kind of popular themes we've seen with teen adventurers. I suppose I think back to Buffy,
Hmm.
but that's again this is sort of a US context. More recently, Stranger Things,
Hmm.
but whereas I really love that dynamic. I want, of this kind of group of teens who are not just wrestling with um, the horrible stuff that's going on in their everyday life because they're teenagers, but also wrestling with these kind of more dangerous, supernatural threats from beyond, or just simply adults who are up to no good. Um, So
And
it's a very
volunteer
odd because
week.
it sounds like I'm kind of throwing a lot of things in, but they are kind of hyper controlled in this cut off village. Um, and so they have the ordinary teen things, but I think amplified by the fact that they're sort of isolated in this kind of weird village.
Yeah.
Um, and it allows us to lean into the sort of folk horror. It allows us to lean into kind of village rumor and village life, and
Yeah.
who's actually up to no good, who's just an eccentric. Um, but I think as well there's a little bit there of kind of League of Gentlemen and again a Midsummer Murder. I think
Hmm.
it can be played in more than one way. When I play
Yeah.
tested it, I found that obviously I lent into the grotesque because I
Yeah.
find that amusing to myself really, and my players I think found it very amusing too. But it can be played, I think, in a more sweet and straight way if you want to. The tools will be there in the game, and the gamekeeper can go whichever way they want to go with them. So that's kind of what brought us to work together.
Right.
But I have known Chris a very long time. He used to disturb our games.
Yeah.
Um, he was we'd be playing a role-playing game in the lounge, and
My band would
there'd
be
be this almighty
rehearsing noisily in
crashing
the
coming from
basement.
downstairs, which was Chris's band.
I love that Ken actually weaved it into the game and said, "Oh, the Martians are celebrating
He
their
did.
victory with a raucous party." And I'd get a few
Yeah, the
comments as
goblins
the
are.
weeks wore. Yeah, those Martians are still celebrating, aren't they, Chris?
The goblins are putting the war drums on again. But yeah, so that's where I suppose the inspiration for the game came from.
Oh,
That's
okay. Well, bit strange, isn't it? That's
yeah,
definitely. And Gorton as well. I must admit, okay, I'm going to sort of put it out there. I've backed this Kickstarter. I will put the
okay,
Kickstarter details in the comments for anyone watching this video as well.
brilliant.
So please do
Thank you, thank
think
you.
about getting it backed and getting this game out there. The way I sort of well, obviously I know One Dice quite well myself. I've
Yeah,
used it quite a few times to say the least. And I'm just loving the idea. I've done Stranger Things meets Famous Five. That was my
that's
straight
Yeah,
exactly
take
it.
on it.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But also, I came up with this mad idea of, well, what about setting it in the 1940s? We could actually have the Home Guard in there. So basically,
Yeah.
we could have Dad's Army. There's an RAF base, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We've
I think
we've got
I mean, we did discuss as one of the add-ons, Gorton through the ages.
yes.
So
I sketched a map. See the village very much kind of like Avebury. It's built within a stone circle.
Yeah.
But now a shady government operation has put radomes over the stones to harness their power. So it's I used to go on holiday to Whitby every year, and we'd go, over the big main road by
Yeah.
Harrogate and see Menwith Hill, and it really disturbed me, but intrigued me as a child, and I
Yeah.
wanted to creep around that base and investigate. So that's bled into it, but it's exactly that. It's that sense of the uncanny and the weird, but also the kind of fun, famous five adventure aspects to it.
Well, that's basically it, and I think that's where a lot of the fun can come from. But the great thing is, with One Dice, when they get this sandbox, they can make it their own, do whatever they want
yeah,
with it. The lore, as I know, isn't set in stone. So
Hmm.
basically, the people who back it and run this will, I think, get so much actually out of it. So I'm really looking forward to
Yeah.
seeing get more of it. Um, Going back to the One Dice system, do you want to summarize the One Dice system in, say, 5 sentences each? We'll start with you. Five is just a random number. We can go less, but One Dice, Pete. One Dice. We know where. Well, I know where it came from. Tell us a bit about One Dice. Where did it come from?
idea of wanting a very portable, kid-friendly, accessible game. Sentence number one.
Yep.
1d6. That's
Sentence
the
number two.
motor. So I know it's a comma. So
Yeah.
that's 1d6 is the motor. So that means most things are against the target number, and you roll 1d6 plus any modifiers. The books have so far been designed very much so that people can kind of plug and play. Every book's got all of the rules in because the rules are very simple, but they all tend to lean into, they're not just giving the same information. They tend to lean in, so there'll be some tweaks to suit whatever genre you're playing.
Yeah.
And that's 3 sentences, but they're really long, so I'll stop now.
Yeah, well, I'll come to Chris in a second, and I know full well that the character creation in the various books is part of the actual learning of the game, which is
Mm.
absolutely brilliant. But also the subtle differences in there. So when you move on to a new game, it's new but very similar and familiar as well if you already know the system. So go on, Chris, as someone quite new to One Dice, really, in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, your take on it in 3 sentences or more.
Oh no, only a three. It was perfect for someone like me, really, who was intrigued by the whole concept, but very time poor because I've always been so busy with other projects, like celebrating with the Martians in the basement. Um,
And the goblins,
and then
yeah.
and the goblins, yeah, pounding the drums. But yeah, to have this really accessible system where all you need is literally one dice and a pencil and a bit of paper, and it's all there. And I love how sort of universal the books are in terms of you can fit so much around these really, like Pete says, simple concepts. So it's sci-fi, it's fantasy, and yet you also have the adventure skins to kind of tailor it to make it exactly what the game that you want to play. And it was really interesting for me playing as a newcomer with some real seasoned gamers, people who've been playing, probably longer than I've been alive, and everybody got as much out of it. It was just the perfect system to be accessible and enjoyable for everyone.
There you go. That kind of sums it up, I think, which is absolutely perfect. Now, obviously, we've got this new book out. It's been a while since we've seen anything as such from Cakebread and Walton or One Dice or even Renaissance, which is your other
Mhm.
big system. Just touch briefly on that. And obviously, Renaissance Deluxe was a D100 system, a lot more
Yeah,
complex than obviously One Dice. But future of One Dice, are we going to be seeing more projects?
I
I
hope so.
absolutely hope so. Yeah. Go on, Chris.
Oh, well, I've got half of one written. I'm not going to say what it is yet,
No,
but
keep it quiet. This is
no, keeping it
that's for
quiet
the
for now. Yeah,
next interview.
that's dreams and aspirations at this stage. But no, the hope very much is that Cakebread and Walton are back, isn't it, Pete? But it depends on how well this Kickstarter does, and we're only a few days into the campaign, but it's looking really promising already. I think we're about 75% of the way there. So fingers crossed, this is going to take
Well,
us back to
hopefully,
where we need to be. Yeah,
yeah.
and we've been planning some really exciting stretch goals as well, haven't we? If we
Yeah.
end up exceeding the target, little extras we can have, more maps, more floor plans, a bit more writing. Yeah,
Well, there
so
we go.
Yeah,
hopefully.
I mean, I'm really happy with. I think if this goes well, I think either way, it's not kind of the end. If it didn't go very well, we'd still perhaps, dabble at bringing out one dice things because it's fun to
Yeah,
do. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
a
yeah.
real. I think that's the thing. It's been a really passion project. Apart from writing the book, I've been kind of running it as a playtest adventure, and it's really. I think it's in the playing that I've really enjoyed it. But yeah, I think we've now starting to assemble a team where we have actually people who can do the practical stuff as well.
Good.
Joe, who sort of did our maps, we're really happy with the sort of big maps that
Yeah.
we've got. And in the same way, Ian's been, a real stalwart, doing lots of stuff with the layout, lots of stuff with kind of graphics. So one of the things we're going to have in there is that nearly every building that's on the map, that's kind of a place of note, he's done architectural style plans for. So it really is that kind of, if you are really time poor and you need a sandbox, and it's like, well, I go into the school, you're not going to have to kind of make up what the school looks like. We've kind of actually made sure not only is there
Hmm.
maps in there, but there's kind of thorough description of who's in where.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that's been really good fun,
Yes. Yeah.
because I've really enjoyed fleshing it out. And there's no running out of steam on that. It's really just about kind of seeing how big a book we can produce and making sure that if we do exceed the target, if we hit stretch goals, that what we're putting in isn't just sort of an extra little bit, but something that of substance. So we're sort of thinking about not just the extra setting stuff, but making sure maybe that every location's got a location description for every area in a location, which we've done with some things like the research base, but we haven't done with everything. We're just assuming, people can manage that themselves. But I'd quite like to carry on because we the more we get into it, the more questions it answers. Really,
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to do with the sandbox as well is not make it so prescriptive. So it might be that you've got a character in there that's the supply teacher, but if the supply teacher doesn't last very long, then another supply teacher can can come along. And
Yeah.
likewise with the research facility, there's a
Yeah.
director there at the moment, so we do give you some things, but it's if a gamekeeper would rather have their own owner or director or military force or criminal organization taking over the research station for a while, that's where they're going to go with it. But I would like to kind of complete it before other people sort of color over each of the sections that we've already done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think we will do more one dice as well when we.
Oh yeah,
Excellent. Well, I'm
definitely.
still wanting to see a one dice Dark Streets at some time. That's I think
Oh,
would be quite nice. However, that's for the future. It's the here and now
Yeah.
we're looking at.
Be
So
nice though, wouldn't it? I've
I
got the One Dice Digest
be very
version, which
good.
is the D100 one, but one of the translations, and I'm looking at it and thinking, oh yeah, this would work really well in this format.
it
So,
would very 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 well, and also it'd be quite different. So it would fit into your folk horror aspect, I think, as well. That one,
Very
Chris.
much.
I think it would
Yeah.
be quite a hit, and it would actually bring what is essentially a great little IP to a bigger audience as well. That's the other aspect actually of it. Quite unusual, and of course, Cthulhu is seemingly just more and more current as the years go by. Again, they keep saying, "Oh, we can't sustain any more Lovecraftian style games," but actually, we do, and we love them. And as long as it's got a different angle, and Dark
I
Streets
think
was
that's
subtly
it.
different,
Yeah.
then
Yes.
then yeah,
Infinite potential, really.
yeah.
More than any other subgenre, I would say.
There's so many different things you could actually sort of do with it.
Yeah.
And again, one dice. I'd love to sort of see a 60s or 70s sort of
mm.
English horror sort
Ooh.
of
Yeah.
thing at some stage as
I should get
in
Chris Wood as well.
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bit Jack Shackelford, possibly if you I don't know if you came across that particular author, or maybe Guyan Smith. There you go. There's
Yes. One dice crabs.
crabs. I was
I mean, I think so. Well, I mean, Chris has been very quiet about what he's thinking about writing. I
The
know
I'm not
he's
cat's
going to
out. The
put.
crab's out of the
been very
bag.
good at reading minds. Um, it's it's I think that is the thing. I think with the Lovecraftian thing, I think it's easy to think. In some ways, it can be too saturated. I think in some senses, in a certain time period, because I mean, I love, but then it's not because it's like there's so many games set in the 1920s, but I'd never turn down playing another game set in the 1920s
No,
because it's fun and
yeah,
because it hits notes that we like.
yeah,
I think that's the thing. Sometimes things get made a lot because we like them.
yeah,
And so sort of sometimes we think, oh, is there too much Lovecraft? Well, is there too many murder mysteries or is there too many?
Yeah.
I mean, people like what they like.
that's it.
Um, but at the same time, it is quite, and I think that's what sort of things like some of the contemporary things we're getting on television now, on Netflix and the like. I think there is that thing of, well, we'll take Lovecraftian themes and we'll really
Mm.
nod to them and we'll really lean into them and we'll really enjoy them, but it doesn't have to be a retelling of,
Mm.
um,
Yeah,
you know,
Well,
one
Cabinet of
particular Lovecraftian
Curiosities was a
story.
lot like that, wasn't it? There were a
it
couple of
was.
Yeah.
stories adapted, but then there were others where it was just a Lovecraftian element, and I actually
Yeah,
preferred those, I must say.
they were quite interesting,
Mm.
and I think they were generally well done. As a
Mm.
Lovecraftian sort of, well, as I really enjoy my H.P. Lovecraft. The stories made me sort of cringe a little bit. The official versions that they did of
Yeah.
those. I mean, me going, no, that's just not right.
Mm,
But, but anyway, it's what you can actually do. And unfortunately, it's very difficult, I think, to sort of put cosmic horror on screen and make it work. And this is why
yes.
a
Yeah.
role-playing game is so much better, where it's
Exactly.
theatre of the mind, as in it's all going on in your head there,
Yeah.
and it's just so much better. And it's not something they could actually ever put on the big screen because you'd be looking and going, well, okay, is that it? That doesn't
Yeah.
look too
I
horrific
Yeah.
to me.
completely agree. Yeah.
Saw
Yeah.
33 was more horrific, you know.
And again, folk horror. I mean, yeah, there's certain contexts it works in better than others. And again, an English village, I think, is one of the good
Mm,
Yeah. It's
concepts for that.
brilliant.
perfect. I mean,
Yeah. Again,
It's
it's one of the core. If you take a look at a lot of the 70s and early 80s
Children of the Stones.
books,
It's just
again,
perfect for me.
that's it. Yeah. And again, what a great TV series that actually was when you look back.
Yeah.
And I remember back in the day thinking, oh God, it's Blake. What's he doing here? Uh,
Right.
Blake Seven. Here. There you go. There's one dice, Blake Seven. There's another one. That would be an
well, yeah. I don't know if we can file the numbers off that one.
Blake 6, they'll never
yeah.
notice.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Blake 6.5 or
Yeah, it'll be
Blake eight,
Jake's
Blake 8 minus one.
Jake's 6 or
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not sure that.
Uh,
But I mean, I'd love it. I mean,
yeah.
it's great.
Get in the
It has some
laborator
of
and
the.
you'll be fine. Anyway,
I mean, there was no there was no simple rights and wrongs on our youth, was there? It
yeah,
was all very
yeah.
very great.
That was it. What I
And that
was,
was just a fantastic series.
yeah,
But I do think with the one dice thing as well, it's kind of it is nice because the rules sit right at the back. And
yeah,
I think having a village, I did notice as I was doing it. I mean, we all have recurring NPCs, but
oh yeah.
sometimes you kind of have to have them stumble in the path of your investigators
yeah,
or give hooks. But in a sort of closed village environment, there's plenty of kind of scope for people just to bump into people, or everyone literally lives within a 5-minute walk of each other.
yeah,
Well, it's,
Um,
it's a tiny place, and yet there are ghosts and time fishers. There's a lot to encounter.
yeah. Well, that's it. Well, this is for I think for when it's actually out there for people to actually discover. Because again, what you can actually do with it will be second to
Yeah.
none. Right. Okay. I'm going to throw another. Well, in fact, make it a one dice question. Your favorite one? We're not going to sort of take the current Kickstarter into consideration. Your favorite one dice book, Chris. There you go. Throw it at you.
Ooh, I'm gonna say One Dice Universal, because I think it's the best example of the range in terms of
Good
what you
call.
can do with it. Yeah,
Yeah, you can do basically anything with that.
exactly. It's the perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Pete.
oh, I should be really creepy, shouldn't I? I'll go and scurry to my shelf. Let's have a look. See
Choose a
if I can get
choose a
it.
choose a top three. You can choose a top three if you want.
Well, I'm
Oh, I
just
tell you what,
I'm just making
I'm
sure
gonna
I've got.
yeah. I love One Dice Airship Pirates as well. The
I'm going to
pocket-sized
find that the
version
one
of
that I
that.
want to
There you
hold
go.
up isn't in the clutch of books I've just brought back, because I'm going to find that it's in the other room. But okay, so we're going to do from 3 to 1.
Go on, yeah.
3 to 1.
With the reason as
Okie
to why you
dokie.
liked it so much as well. So it's there's got to be reasons behind it. Go on. Number three, we have.
Raptors.
Ooh.
Raptors.
Yeah.
Now, what I liked about writing this one was the fact that I did it for a bet. Uh, so- and someone basically asked me to write it. And I didn't do it for a bet. I did it for charity. Someone said, "Oh, I'll tell you what, I auctioned it. I'll do a book that you want to read if you bid on it." And so I found it really interesting doing something from scratch. They fed in a few sort of key ideas that they'd like to be included in it. And I really enjoyed writing it. And it was one of the most eccentric books I've ever written, with Raptor Jesus and all these other different. You actually play the Raptors. And
Yeah.
that to me is very, very weird and quite good fun.
Yeah. And I think it's the only Raptor role playing game that I've actually ever seen as well. So there you go. It's unique, this
What?
guys. You want to play a Raptor, then basically One Dice Raptor is your only way to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's just I still read that. I mean, it's bad. You shouldn't laugh at your own writing, but I laugh at the world because it brings me joy because it was just
Yeah,
such a fun. It was like a writing challenge, but at the end of it, I've used it, gamed with it, and it's again you have a blast sort of in the when you're doing a one shot, particularly of that. I think with Gorton, the current one I've been sort of running series of linked adventures, and that's worked fine. With Raptors, really, it's a kind of thing. If someone said, "Oh, can you write something for a convention?" That's a neat couple of hour game. It's
yeah,
kind of go along and break your way up the animal
yeah,
park or whatever it
yeah.
happens to be.
A ripping
Um,
good game.
yeah. Now, where am I going to go next? I think probably, and this is just because I use this. World War One, I use for too
Uh,
many things that are not really World War One that are kind of more Edwardian horror. But again, I think I have to say it leans into sort of passion that I've got for history.
Yeah,
And as you say, I've not done Dark Streets, I've not done Clockwork and Chivalry in that way. And so, although I don't use it for pure history, it's pretty much a pure history book.
yeah.
It has skins to change that. But I just really enjoyed researching it. And then I'm going to be the ultimate creep.
oh, I know what this is.
This is One Dice Haunt Away.
It's that looks an
And
interesting
this
book.
is,
That
yeah, it is indeed. If you ever fancied a fast food frenzy versus all sorts of horrible well, and very annoying ghosts and ghoulies, then this is the book for you.
yeah,
And again, I think we were talking about it before. It has that thing of transposing kind of a
Yes.
genre that we know, but in a very peculiarly British way.
yeah.
And I believe as well, we're thinking that we will put, in fact, I think I'll put all three of those books. Am I allowed to do that? Yep, they're all
Yeah,
mine
yeah,
and
Yeah.
yours. We're going to put all three of
yeah.
those books on pay what you want for the duration of the
The duration of the
Kickstarter.
campaign.
Brilliant.
People can look at the quick start, which is free and always has been. So there's that as well. But over the duration of the Kickstarter campaign, we'll put those three books alongside the quick start, all at pay what you want. So if people
Brilliant.
want to just dip in, don't want to pay, but just want to dip in, have a look at the rules, or if they do want to pay, then I think they'll enjoy them if those are the sort of genres they really like.
Yeah, I think they
Um,
will.
so there you go.
That's in fact we could have the link. We could have Ghost Raptors in World War One with that. So
You probably could.
There you go.
that's an absolute brilliant. That just so people, just for clarity here, by the way, I actually wrote Hornsway was one of the key authors, along with Pete.
Well, you mean the
And
one of the key authors? You're the author, aren't
yeah,
you?
Be
Really?
honest.
it was well edited as well, though.
I mean, I can have a look at this, and it says by Adrian Gawain Jones, so I think you're the author.
And
You do-
I must admit, it's one of the that and Space are the One Dice Space are two of my favorite
Yeah,
games that I've actually
Yeah.
worked on. And I think the other
I
one,
love space, but
yeah,
the only thing with space is I haven't really played it enough because I've got really good plans. I've got games I want to write for space, but I just haven't got around
it
to doing them.
it's just so huge as that book, and also it's again
Yeah.
Yeah.
so One Dice Space. It's a huge thick hardback, and it's just lovely.
But the
And the other
first game you
ones,
ever ran for me, Pete, was One Dice Space.
there you go.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But I've
remember,
not been able to get my teeth in and do the amount of world building that I'd normally.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy that side of it. I enjoy the prep side, and yeah, I think I don't know, Chris. I probably said all. I don't know what I said, but I probably actually just prepared the notes on the back of a fag packet
I
before I
think it
ran it.
literally was that.
it's the best way. After me spending all those times and hours on tables and stuff for it to make a back of a fag packet. Well, what can I say? In fact, yeah, there you go. Carry on. There we go. That's another one. One Dice Carry On. That'd be another great one. I
Oh,
can
well, that
see
would be
that.
perfect. But I mean, Christmas is coming up. I don't even know if it's available anymore, and it's not One Dice. But I did write a free Panto the RPG, and I think
Oh
I
it's
yeah.
called It's
yeah
Behind You,
yeah
and it's probably been
Yeah.
taken down off the internet for matters of taste. But it's an all it is a complete RPG,
yeah.
and it wouldn't be very difficult to port that across to One Dice
No,
actually.
It wouldn't be. I think what we need to do as well, once you get it re-established, hopefully properly, we start seeing a bit more Rolling Thunder coming out as well, because
Yeah,
that was the magazine basically. Even if it was just
yeah,
like a quarterly or twice a year, or even an annual, I think that would be great
yeah,
with loads of extra stuff for basically
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Right. I'll wrap it up there, gentlemen. Have you got any last things that you would like to say, Chris?
Oh, just make sure you share the campaign because we're so close to the target
Yeah.
and we're really excited now about stretch goals. And like I said, I've sketched some maps of Gorton through the ages before the Raydomes when it was just the stone circles, before the Abbey was a ruin. And we're really excited to delve into the history of Gorton. So yeah,
Lots of delving
that's
to be done, which is very important. Uh, and yourself, Pete, anything from your side?
Well, yeah. If we'd like to thank everybody who's backed the Kickstarter so far, I think that's the first thing. It really is appreciated. It's given us a real boost, and it makes us kind of more determined to do more. Yeah, and if people are interested, if they want to know any more, they can get in touch with us on Facebook or through our website.